A woman picked up a kitten on her way home from work. She was just about to take it home with her when, while crossing an intersection, she didn't notice the car coming up behind her. Everything happened so suddenly. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself in someone else's body. It probably wasn't fair to the original owner of this body, because she had parents who loved her very much. She felt very guilty about this. Her parents ran a tavern in town. To avoid disrupting the harmony of the original family, she lived each day in this body, helping her parents with the work at the tavern. She waited on customers and did odd jobs. But as a modern person, she'd never experienced having to do so many chores every day. Perhaps heaven also recognized this kind soul and quietly sent her a gift. That gift was the ability to chat pleasantly with animals. After spending some time with them, she gradually began to understand the thoughts of these little creatures. She found this to be very meaningful and felt happy from the inside out. But one afternoon, she overheard a conversation between some customers. They were saying that the emperor had a black panther that seemed to be ill. The emperor had summoned all the skilled veterinarians in the land, but they all said the panther had no physical problems. It seemed like the panther, just like a person, had some kind of emotional distress. It hadn't eaten anything for days and nights. The emperor had even issued a reward. If anyone could cure his black panther, he would grant them one wish. Maria's heart stirred when she heard this. Wouldn't that mean wealth and power could be within her reach? So she slowly approached the customers and asked if the emperor was really looking for someone to treat the panther. The one-eyed man sitting opposite her confirmed it. Upon hearing this, she revealed a triumphant look. Not only could she communicate with animals, but in her past life, she had been a veterinarian. Oh, right, introductions. Her name was Maria Louverin. Physically, she was the adopted daughter of a commoner tavern owner. In spirit, she was a modern person from the 21st century. She could even talk and chat with animals. But she was completely illiterate in this world's language. This was a world where men were superior to women. It was virtually impossible for a woman to become a scholar here. But a highway to fame and power lay before her. Therefore, she had to cure that black panther. She wrote a letter of recommendation, but didn't know how to explain things to her parents. But how could her worried look escape her parents' eyes? Her mother walked up to Maria and asked if she had something troubling her. Maria excitedly said she wanted to go traveling. The old couple was a little surprised. Maria thought it was a lost cause. But her father told her if she had something she wanted to do, then she should go. Her mother unconditionally supported her husband's decision. She also trusted her daughter's judgment. He asked Maria if she had a destination in mind. She happily replied that she hadn't decided on a specific place yet. She couldn't just tell her mother she was going to save the emperor's black panther. It would take 15 days to travel by boat from here to the palace, plus a few days for the return trip. It would take over a month. Not wanting her father to worry, she said many things to comfort him. This would be her first time leaving home. She was thinking about when to leave when she ran into a troublesome presence on the stairs. His name was Ross. He was Maria's younger sister. When Maria first woke up, Ross had cried her eyes out, fearing something terrible had happened to her sister. Even when their mother was busy, Ross stayed by Maria's side, protecting her. Just when Maria thought they were loving sisters, she realized that Ross changed her attitude as soon as their mother left. Ross believed Maria, as an adopted child, received too much. Her mother's love for Maria even surpassed that for her own biological daughter. Therefore, Ross always wanted to use her status as the biological daughter to bully her sister. But things were different now. She was going to teach Ross a lesson. The couple who owned the Gold and Silver Tavern unexpectedly found a child. However, while raising the girl, they neglected the feelings of their biological daughter, Ross. When Ross was young, she was often teased by other children. They teased her about her sister being adopted, yet favored over her, the biological daughter. This caused her young heart to become twisted. As time went on, she saw her sister become more and more outstanding. Even her parents showered her with the gentlest affection. Extreme jealousy took root in her heart. She started to become unreasonable. But even when she blamed Maria for everything, her mother never criticized her sister. She couldn't understand. Why did her mother always gently tolerate her sister? She was their biological daughter. This made her resent Maria even more. But her mother knew. She valued both her daughters. However, Maria would eventually leave them one day. She just wanted Maria to feel more of their family's love before she left. Perhaps her mother's approach was a bit selfish. But for Ross, wasn't this also a form of growth? After composing herself, Maria took a basket and went outside. She had a special friend there. The moment she saw him, all the unpleasantness vanished. Compared to the complexities of the human heart, she preferred these special friends. The animals wouldn't scheme against her. The pure friendship between them could even surpass that of family. But this time, Maria came to say goodbye. She told the little dog about her plan to save the Black Panther. After the little dog inquired about the details, he believed that if it was Maria, she could certainly do it. But he still hoped she wouldn't go, because he would be lonely after she left. His words were pure, without a trace of falsehood or manipulation. She was grateful to heaven for granting her this ability. The little dog was also sincerely grateful that he could be friends with Maria. Soon after, Maria said a simple goodbye to her parents and embarked on her journey to a foreign land. Her mother prayed sincerely in her heart, wishing her a safe journey. This was the first time Maria had left home since coming to this world. Along the way, animals greeted her enthusiastically. Unexpectedly, having lived in a coastal city in her past life, she found herself getting seasick. With a long journey ahead, she didn't know what to do. At that moment, a crew member approached her with concern. "Are you all right?" She looked up and saw a remarkably handsome man, both in looks and physique. The man's name was Jed. He was 20 years old and offered to take care of Maria, hoping she would travel with him. But Maria was cautious and said she was feeling much better. The man suddenly moved closer, scrutinizing her. Then, he produced a pill from seemingly nowhere, increasing Maria's suspicion. She declined his offer of help. Jed, sensing her hesitation, decided to take the pill himself to prove his innocence. Maria was stunned. Right in front of her, he swallowed the pill. The man gave a sincere smile. "Now, do you trust me?" He then took out another pill. What would Maria choose? The Emperor had promised that whoever cured his beloved Black Panther would have one wish granted. The girl who could hear the voices of animals embarked on a long journey alone to save the Black Panther. This was also her first time in the outside world. But unexpectedly, she got seasick. As she complained about not bringing motion sickness medicine, a man named Jed, out of concern, approached her and offered her a mysterious pill. Maria was very wary. Secondly, he didn't want to accept help from others without reason, so he politely returned the man's concern. Unexpectedly, Jed misunderstood. He thought Maria took him for a bad guy. Without a word, he swallowed a pill in front of Maria. This was to clarify that he had no ill intentions. Seeing this, Maria felt it was hard to refuse him any further. Seeing the girl relax her guard a little, Jed enthusiastically invited her to sit inside the ship. When he learned that the girl was only 16 years old, Jed asked Maria what her purpose was in going to Hold. That's right, Maria hadn't completely let down her guard against Jed. When introducing herself, she used her sister's name, Ross, because everything outside was still very strange to her. But when asked what she was going to Hold for, she stammered for a long time without saying a word. Seeing this, Jed recommended the royal palace to her, because that place looked very grand and magnificent. Every time he went there, he was amazed by the scenery. At this time, Maria mentioned, "It seems you know that place very well." Jed didn't hide anything and told Maria that he had many royal friends there. After hearing this, Maria tentatively asked, "Do you know the Crown Prince?" Not only did Jed know him, but he was also very good friends with the Crown Prince. But whenever this was mentioned, Jed felt a wave of annoyance, because the Crown Prince's beloved Black Panther was sick and had even lost its appetite recently. His Crown Prince friend was terribly worried. Maria was a little shocked. She couldn't believe that the person in front of her was so close to the Crown Prince, and the other party didn't seem to be lying. Jed noticed that Maria was engrossed in the story about the Crown Prince. He casually said, "If only you were half as infatuated with me." But after chatting, he dropped the subject. Returning to his serious demeanor, he told Maria, "If you feel unwell later, pinch this spot on your wrist. That will make you feel better." Immediately afterwards, he reached into his pocket and handed Maria a bag full of motion sickness pills. Maria thought this was too valuable and said she only needed to know where to buy them. Jed told her that these couldn't be bought because he had a friend custom make them for him. But Maria didn't want to accept something from someone else for no reason. She was just about to offer some money as payment, when suddenly she heard a pathetic sound. She knew very well that it was an animal crying for help. As someone who considered animals her friends, she pushed open the door without hesitation. She found a man about to hit a dog on the floor. Maria clenched her fists angrily. "What are you doing? Stop it." The man told her to mind her own business. Seeing this, Jed immediately shielded the dog in his arms. The commotion of the argument quickly attracted a crowd of onlookers. Maria, however, had no intention of backing down. She thought the man's behavior was despicable. How could you hurt a small and innocent animal? At this moment, the man felt a sense of foreboding. Just then, the man's wife arrived. She didn't understand why there was such a commotion here. When she saw her beloved dog in such a miserable state, she didn't stop to think. She rushed straight to Jed and snatched the dog in her arms. She asked her husband what had happened to the dog. The man shamelessly said that it was probably seasick. The woman felt a pang of guilt. "I shouldn't have brought you out." Maria, who knew the truth, stood by helplessly, hearing the dog's inner resistance to the man. She decided to do something for the dog. The dog's love for its owner was perhaps just wanting to stay with its owner forever, even though its life was short. But he finally felt his owner's sincerity, a feeling that would never fade. Suddenly one day, a man shattered their peaceful life. This was undoubtedly a nightmare for him. Because of their unsatisfying marital relations, the man blamed all the problems on him. From then on, he lived under immense pressure in front of the mistress, but his body was simply too weak. Fortunately, today there was a girl here who could hear his true inner thoughts, and she resolutely decided to help him. The girl introduced herself as a professional, but someone questioned her abilities. They thought that she was too young to be skilled, but after only a brief examination, she diagnosed the dog as having extreme psychological stress. His uncontrolled vomiting and urination, along with the sunken areas under his eyes, all indicated that he was under immense pressure. After hearing this, the woman sadly picked up the dog. She believed her negligence had caused his condition. She should have listened to her husband and sent him to the countryside. Unexpectedly, Maria heard the dog's complaints. It wasn't his fault at all. He didn't want to leave the woman and kept praying for someone to help him. Hearing this, Maria hurried over to them and offered to examine him closely, hoping to find a solution. Fortunately, the woman was very kind. She also wanted her dog to become lively again. Who would have thought that Maria would bend down in public and whisper to the dog? The dog was surprised. How could this human understand his thoughts? But he decided to trust her and told Maria everything. After learning the truth, Maria immediately pointed out the culprit. "It's your husband. He wants to abandon the dog." The woman turned to look at her husband. The man panicked, thinking Maria was lying. Based on her appearance, he thought her qualifications were very ordinary. "How dare you speak in such a professional field?" As he spoke, he splashed a glass of water at her. Jed suddenly appeared and blocked the water. This touched Maria's heart. She quickly grabbed his hand and expressed her concern. But this guy actually started playing with his hair and acting cool at this moment. This made the little bit of good feeling Maria had just developed for him instantly disappear. Jed ignored the man and told Maria not to talk to strangers. His actions angered the man even more. He pointed at him sarcastically and asked, "Do you know who I am?" Jed didn't indulge him at all, and no matter who you are, it doesn't change the fact that you've made a mistake. Unexpectedly, the man grabbed Jed by the collar and demanded evidence of his guilt. Jed, however, had noticed something amiss from the beginning of the argument, and when they boarded the ship, he had seen the man secretly making a deal. He initially thought he was smuggling something illegal, but it turned out he was just hiring someone to take the dog away. The witnesses were quickly apprehended by the guards and brought forward. The exposed man was stunned. His wife also hadn't expected her husband would try to get rid of her beloved dog. The man flew into a rage. He claimed everything he did was for their happiness. He believed his wife valued the dog too much, preventing them from focusing on their own lives and having children. The two onlookers were dumbfounded. They hadn't expected such drama. Maria couldn't help but admire him for saying such shameful things in public. But she heard even bigger gossip from the dog's thoughts. The woman glared at the man angrily. "Aren't you the problem?" The man was speechless after his wife's retort. Then he revealed the truth. Because the man is a softie with no survival skills, that this deer was very annoying at first. "Now, I sincerely apologize to you." The next day, Maria was on the deck enjoying the sea breeze. The dog's owner came to sincerely apologize to her. Thanks to her help, the dog was able to recover so quickly. Regarding the woman's apology, Maria simply thought, "Your dog is like a noble knight protecting you." Of course, he probably didn't know the reason behind it, but he thought it was incredible that Maria could do such a thing for animals. His words reminded Maria of her purpose. She just wanted to cure the king's Black Panther and receive a handsome reward. She had never thought about becoming a qualified veterinarian in this world. Just as she was deep in thought, Jed's appearance interrupted her train of thought. He approached Maria. "I have some good news and some bad news to tell you." The girl who could hear the voices of animals decided to use her ability to treat the emperor's most beloved pet. For this purpose, she embarked on a long journey alone. Along the way, she met a man named Jed. Not only did he offer her care when she was seasick, but he also joined her in saving a fragile life. But once everything was taken care of, what followed was a tedious journey. And at this time, Jed approached Maria. He told her that the ship was about to arrive at a small town. It was a prosperous supply station. Not only could you buy all sorts of precious gifts there, but there were also countless delicacies to enjoy. After hearing this, Maria was as excited as a child. When she asked if she could disembark and explore, Jed sincerely extended an invitation. "May I have the honor of being your guide?" However, regarding Jed's invitation, Maria simply smiled and said that she only wanted to wander around not far from the ship. In reality, this was just her being cautious of Jed. But when she saw Jed's disappointed expression, she couldn't help but recall how he had fearlessly shielded her before. Although they had only known each other for a few days, the concern this boy showed towards her was genuine. So, she changed her mind and accepted Jed's invitation. Maria's sudden change in attitude puzzled Jed. Soon after, the ship arrived at the port. Many passengers took the opportunity to disembark and take a break. Maria, like a curious child, didn't listen to a word of Jed's introduction. The small shop she had never seen before, and the various handicrafts displayed on the stalls, all made the girl, whose soul came from the modern era, brighten up. Seeing Maria so happy, Jed was also happy, genuinely feeling that this trip was worthwhile. Maria, however, sighed because she had important matters to attend to on this trip. After finishing her business, she would have to hurry home. So, she didn't want to miss any opportunity to rest. She wanted to create some beautiful memories during her limited travels. Looking back, Jed was frozen in place like a wooden post, because that pure, sweet smile deeply touched the young man's heart. By the time he reacted, Maria had already taken his hand, pulling him along to watch various performances and taste many delicacies she hadn't eaten in her hometown. After excitedly strolling around for a long time, the curious child finally couldn't walk anymore. The only pity was that there were no cell phones in this world. Otherwise, she could have taken many memorable photos. She thought about buying a necklace as a souvenir, but the prices here were like highway robbery. Just then, a kitten appeared out of nowhere. The kitten's friendly behavior made Jed think that Maria seemed to be very popular with animals. Maria could understand his thinking. After all, Jed didn't know that she could hear the animals' voices and even communicate with them. Jed suggested buying some food for the kitten. After hearing this, Maria explained to Jed that you shouldn't give kittens random food, or they might get diarrhea and feel unwell. The kitten at their feet glanced at the meat and said, "Don't bother, pal. That stuff doesn't look good at all." Maria immediately decided to teach the kitten a lesson. She asked the vendor, "Do you have any beef jerky without spices or preservatives? If you do, please give me 3 pieces." Seeing the customer was a cute little girl, the vendor even gave Maria a discount. Just as she was about to pay, a pickpocket swiftly snatched her purse from her hand. He quickly disappeared into the crowd. A curse word slipped out of Maria's mouth. Hearing the commotion, Jed immediately got up and chased after the thief without hesitation. Maria, panting, followed behind. When she caught up, she saw Jed ahead. Jed had already caught the thief. Just as Jed turned around, an accomplice of the pickpocket appeared beside him, preparing to attack. But this weakling was no match for Jed. Jed apologetically returned the purse to Maria. He felt it was his negligence that gave the pickpocket an opportunity. Maria asked, curious, "Why are you apologizing? You're a lifesaver. Without you, I would have been very upset." Jed turned his head away, embarrassed. He told Maria to wait for him on the ship. He was going to hand these 2 over to the local police and promised to return soon. But after that day, she never saw Jed again. The girl possessed the ability to communicate with animals. For this, she was willing to travel thousands of miles. to the royal palace to treat a black panther. The reason being that the crown prince's beloved pet was refusing to eat, and he had sought out every veterinarian in the world, but the black panther's condition hadn't improved. Having no other choice, he spread the news across the entire continent and promised that whoever cured the black panther would have one wish granted unconditionally. When Maria arrived at her destination, she was stopped at the gate by the guards. They didn't believe this young girl had the ability to treat the black panther. Maria sincerely explained that she was indeed a qualified veterinarian. However, the soldiers questioned her answer. Suddenly, the sound of hooves came from behind her. A man who appeared mature and composed appeared before her. From the soldiers' reactions, she understood that this man must hold a high position. Then the man asked, "Are you here to treat the black panther?" Maria replied confidently, "I'm 90% sure I can cure His Highness's black panther." The man only thought for a moment before leading Maria into a large mansion. Upon arriving in a room, they first warmly welcomed Maria. Then, the man instructed a servant, who immediately left the room. The man then explained the reason. He couldn't just trust Maria's words, as many veterinarians had come before. But without exception, none of them had been able to help the black panther in the slightest. They had even caused quite a bit of trouble for the crown prince. Therefore, they wanted to test Maria's abilities. If she couldn't describe the dog's current physical condition or made a wrong diagnosis, she would face severe punishment. Maria then looked at the dog below. She noticed the dog looked healthy, with a shiny coat, but the way it was lying down made it seem like it was unwell. Then she heard the dog's complaints. "These humans are always handing me over to strangers, carrying me around, and constantly petting me. I'm really tired of it. Can't they just let me sleep peacefully?" Hearing this, a smile crept onto Maria's face. He told the man that the puppy was perfectly healthy. His tiredness was simply due to laziness. Just like some people don't like to exercise, every dog has its own personality and preferences. The man sighed after hearing this. As expected, Maria passed the test. She then followed the man to the crown prince's room. Along the way, he mentioned many things Maria needed to be mindful of. The crown prince didn't like noisy people. He instructed her to just do what she was supposed to do. Anything else, as long as she didn't overstep, would be fine. After listening, she felt an invisible pressure. The black panther she wanted to save was here, and she would soon be able to fulfill her wish. So, she kept encouraging herself. After entering the room, she finally met the owner of the black panther, the renowned crown prince of the empire. But to her surprise, she had heard about the crown prince's appearance from the tavern's patrons, who knew he was even more handsome than she imagined. The man beside her promptly reminded her, as she was still starstruck. Maria, snapping back to reality, elegantly introduced herself that, "I am the veterinarian here to treat your black panther." Unexpectedly, the crown prince didn't seem to acknowledge her at all. He believed that a girl like her coming here was just a waste of time. But she dared to voice her purpose aloud. "As long as your highness swears that after I cure your black panther, you will grant me one wish." The man beside her thought this was disrespectful to the crown prince, who knew that the crown prince, after hearing this, wasn't angry at all. Instead, he became deeply interested in how she would cure the black panther. "I swear to God, after you cure the black panther, I will fulfill your wish." The reason Maria made the crown prince swear was because the people in this world believed in their God. If anyone broke a vow to God, the deity would cast a curse, affecting every generation that followed. Even the royal family wouldn't make promises lightly. This also showed that the crown prince was truly worried about his black panther. But when she actually saw the black panther, Maria's hands trembled with fear. This was a living, breathing beast. Its aura was like it would devour her at any moment. She couldn't understand why anyone would keep such a creature as a pet, but she still tried to communicate with the black panther. "You haven't been eating much recently. His Highness is very worried about your health. I'm his friend, so you don't have to be afraid. Can we talk?" The black panther, after hearing this, actually sat down obediently. This allowed Maria to breathe a sigh of relief. But then she heard the black panther's inner thoughts and was dumbfounded. It turned out that the black panther's mouth hurt, which was why it hadn't been eating. This also meant that she had to put her hand into this beast's mouth to examine it. The fastest hunter in the animal kingdom had now become an obedient big cat in front of girl, because this girl could not only hear his inner thoughts, but was also an excellent veterinarian. In order to eat the food he craved, he had to cooperate with all of the girl's requests. But when Maria heard his inner complaints, she was stunned. The reason for the Black Panther's loss of appetite was actually in his mouth. Therefore, she had to pry open his mouth to examine it. But this was a ferocious beast after all. One wrong move, and she would be torn to shreds. She suddenly thought, "Do you have any tranquilizers here?" The butler looked at her blankly after hearing this and asked, "What's that?" She forgot that this was another world, but she didn't want to die again. So, Maria began to negotiate with the big cat. "I can help you heal the wound in your mouth, so you can eat delicious, juicy meat again. And I'm the only one here who understands you. But what if you don't trust me?" Faye flew to Wan Yin and turned to look at her master, seemingly pleading with him not to let the girl leave. Maria, understanding Sun Wei's plea, immediately made a request. "Before I heal him, you must promise me one condition. Because the wound is inside his mouth, he'll be very sensitive. The treatment process will also be accompanied by some pain. You must promise he won't bite before I can begin. Otherwise, I'll leave this place immediately." The Black Panther finally compromised. He didn't want the person who could solve his problem to leave. After hearing this, Maria excitedly confirmed multiple times. Then, using the excuse that she couldn't properly examine him otherwise, she asked the Crown Prince to release the Black Panther from the cage. The Crown Prince also confirmed multiple times, "Are you really sure you want me to let him out?" At that time, he couldn't guarantee Maria's safety. The butler voiced his concerns, believing it to be a very dangerous course of action. However, he could only obey the Crown Prince's orders. He probably never would have imagined that the moment the cage was opened, the Black Panther would simply walk calmly out. Then the girl and this oversized cat started interacting. This scene stunned the Crown Prince. Next, the girl began to examine various spots on the Black Panther's body. She had to pretend she didn't know there was a problem with the panther's mouth, lest it arouse unnecessary suspicion. But when the Black Panther opened its massive jaws, Maria discovered that the situation seemed much more serious than she had imagined. A section of flesh in the Black Panther's mouth was severely swollen. Maria couldn't help but feel worried. If it wasn't treated promptly, it would cause further problems. However, the Crown Prince became suspicious. No one had ever mentioned to him that there was a problem with the Black Panther's mouth. Maria could understand their thinking. After all, who in their right mind would examine a ferocious beast's mouth? But the fact is right in front of you. Didn't you see the swelling yourself? The Crown Prince was speechless. Seeing this, Maria listed a number of medicinal herbs needed to treat the Black Panther. The palace worked efficiently, and Maria soon prepared an anti-inflammatory medicine. "Just put this in his mouth." The Black Panther obediently opened its massive jaws. However, Maria couldn't bring herself to do it. She handed the wooden stick covered in medicinal paste to the Crown Prince. She believed this process was very momentous and suggested that the Crown Prince personally treat the injury. In reality, she was just scared. Hearing this, the Crown Prince took the wooden stick and deftly applied the medicinal paste to the inflamed area in the Black Panther's mouth. Then, as if comforting his own child, he soothed the Black Panther. After the treatment, Maria told him that the Black Panther would need a week to recover. The Crown Prince felt this was too long. Maria, however, didn't want to wait a moment longer. She wanted to know when His Highness would fulfill his promise. Unexpectedly, the Crown Prince told her she couldn't leave until the Black Panther had fully recovered. He instructed her to stay in the castle for the time being. The girl never dreamed she would one day wake up in a large bed in the royal palace. Moreover, she had personal maids attending to her every need, even offering dozens of perfumes to choose from. This was a difficult adjustment for someone from a remote village. It was all thanks to the Crown Prince's cunning plan. The day before, Maria had cured the Crown Prince's beloved Black Panther. On the verge of becoming wealthy, she received an order from the Crown Prince. Because the Black Panther's wound needed a week to fully heal, he feared complications might arise and ordered Maria to stay until the panther recovered. In the royal palace, a defenseless young woman like her wouldn't dare refuse the Crown Prince. Therefore, she agreed to his request and even took on the responsibility of caring for the Black Panther. Besides, the Crown Prince was so handsome, but he regretted it on the very first day. He couldn't understand why he made such a promise back then. Just as he was troubled by this, The head maid respectfully came to the room and informed him that the crown prince had invited him to dine together. Maria's eyes lit up. Could it be that he had figured out how to fulfill her wish? But the reality was, she had never seen so many delicious dishes. Wouldn't she have to fill her stomach before her wish was granted? Seeing her devour the food, the crown prince couldn't help but comment, "Did the maid forget to feed you?" He had never seen anyone eat like a panther before. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. The crown prince was the first to break the silence. It was because the first time he saw Maria, he had a strange feeling. He felt that she didn't seem like she belonged in this country, because he had personally raised the Black Panther from a cub. Yet when it lost control, it would attack him, its owner. But after Maria arrived, not only did she have the ability to easily tame the panther, but she also quickly diagnosed the problem. Everything made him think that Maria was extraordinary. These words made Maria's heart sink, because she had a secret. She wasn't the original owner of this body. She decided not to beat around the bush and told the crown prince that she could hear animals' thoughts. The crown prince burst out laughing. He thought she was joking. Maria, realizing her blunder, blushed. No one would usually believe something like that. So she quickly made up an excuse, saying that she had loved animals since she was a child. At this moment, the crown prince suddenly asked her, "What is the wish you want to fulfill at all costs?" Regarding this, it was actually quite simple. When she first arrived in this world, all she could think about was how to return to her original world. But after trying to find a way back for several months, she still hadn't found any useful clues. Finally, with no other choice, she decided to live here for the time being. She wanted to use her past experience as a veterinarian to establish a hospital here. Therefore, she needed sufficient wealth and land to realize this dream. But this sly fox only readily agreed verbally. But his face looked like he was distressed about spending too much money. He simply told Maria to settle down here for now. After finishing his drink, he slammed the door and left without looking back. Unknowingly, 6 days passed. Maria and the big cat were relaxing in the shade, as usual. After spending some time together, she and the Black Panther gradually became friends. And today was the last day she would be taking care of it. She told the panther that she would be leaving soon. The Black Panther, however, expressed surprise at this. Maria thought the big cat was reluctant to part with her. Unexpectedly, the panther told her that this morning, the crown prince had entrusted Maria with the responsibility of caring for it from now on. Upon hearing this, she hurried to the crown prince's office. The crown prince wasn't surprised by her arrival and casually mentioned that he had prepared a more luxurious suite for her on the second floor. He said that in about 2 days, he would be able to finalize the paperwork for her permanent residency. Maria angrily questioned the crown prince, as she had never said she wanted to stay. The crown prince hadn't expected Maria to be so resistant to his arrangements. "Would you only be satisfied if I made you my concubine?" he asked. In order to help the girl fulfill her wish, the man wanted her to be his wife. The girl, however, couldn't accept this, because her wish was to open a veterinary hospital. Therefore, she had to obtain the right to use a piece of land. For this reason, she had traveled so far to cure the Black Panther. Unexpectedly, the crown prince told her that the land was basically all managed by the royal family, and the act of granting land to others was generally reserved for those who had made contributions to the country, or merchants who cooperated with the royal family. But he had sworn that he would fulfill her wish. That's why he wanted to make Maria his concubine. It was the only way he could achieve his wish through the back door. The consequences of doing so were also conceivable. But if Maria couldn't accept this proposal, it would mean he could never achieve this wish. The crown prince also didn't want to restrict Maria's life because of this, so he thought of another way to fulfill his wish. Upon hearing this, Maria immediately perked up. He wanted to hire Maria as the royal veterinarian. He would not only provide her with the land and all the expenses needed to build a hospital, but also offer a monthly salary of $3 million. Then he could keep as many animals as he wanted. Maria agreed without a second thought. Seeing this, the butler immediately handed over a heavy box. Opening it, she saw it wasn't money at all. It was clearly stacks of gold bars. He hadn't expected the crown prince, that sly fox, to be so generous. Seeing this, the Crown Prince sincerely thanked her again for curing the Black Panther. He also genuinely looked forward to her collaboration with Maria. At this moment, Maria was completely captivated by the charm of her wealthy benefactor and didn't pay much attention to what he was saying. She just wanted to sign the contract quickly. After everything was settled, the Crown Prince released the Black Panther. He hadn't taken a panther for a walk in a long time. When they arrived in the garden, an unfamiliar sight caught his attention. He knew without thinking that it was Maria's handiwork. He then sat down in that spot and played with the panther. Seeing the Black Panther before him, he couldn't help but think of Maria and all the hardships of the past. When his father was still alive, he wasn't the Crown Prince. Back then, he still had a happy and complete family. But after the king unexpectedly died on the battlefield, his parents were next in line for the throne. But where there are people, there is bound to be human wickedness. Moreover, at that time, the opposing forces supported the rescue of the queen. It wasn't until his mother's suspicious death that the ministers in the palace faced reality. They believed that the next legitimate heir shouldn't be a woman, and his father only had him as a child. With the strong support of the nobles, he became the Crown Prince. From then on, the male-dominated empire was born. After that, the queen targeted him in every possible way. She even tried to get him out of the picture. She arranged for many girls to go on blind dates with him. Without exception, in the end, those girls chose boys other than him. This dealt a considerable blow to his young heart. Over time, he even reached the point where he had no women in his heart. But when he saw Maria indirectly refuse to become his concubine, he was genuinely happy. He took that as a misunderstanding and thought this girl was special. He firmly believed that Maria could bring joy and laughter to this place. Meanwhile, Maria, now a small fortune, was incredibly excited. She wanted to share this good news with her parents. So she asked a maid for a pen and paper. She wrote all the good things that had happened to her recently in the letter and sent some gold coins back home. After everything was taken care of, she also took advantage of this opportunity to go out and stroll around the city. Soon, she discovered a beautiful scenic spot. Just as she was filled with emotion, she heard the cries of an animal for help behind her. To keep the girl in the palace, the Crown Prince was willing to spend $3 million every month to hire her as the exclusive royal veterinarian and promised to build a hospital for her. But until the hospital was completed, she would be responsible for taking care of the Black Panther. The girl agreed without hesitation. Little did she know that this would be a life-changing choice. After that, Maria finally had some free time to take a walk in the city. She discovered an animal crying for help in a cart full of weeds. He parted the weeds and found, surprisingly, a small, plump bird. Its left wing seemed injured. Kind-hearted, he decided to take it back to the royal palace to heal. On his way back to his room, he ran into Maureen, the head maid. Maria asked her to prepare some medicinal herbs for treating wounds and send them to his room. After Maria had treated the bird's wound, the little creature unexpectedly refused to leave. Having no other choice, he kept the bird and named it Lulu. Coming back to his senses, Maria told Lulu to stay in the room and wait for him. Lulu was curious about where he was going. When Lulu heard that Maria was going to feed the Black Panther, he was very excited, having never heard of such an animal. He hopped onto Maria's hand, begging to be taken along to see this creature. Maria was confused, as the Black Panther might eat him. Finally, after Maria's explanation, Lulu agreed to his condition, that he wouldn't leave his shoulder. When Maria arrived at the Black Panther's room, the panther immediately began scolding him for being late. Maria was about to explain when he met the Black Panther's menacing gaze. Seeing this, he quickly offered the Black Panther some delicious, juicy meat. After eating, the Black Panther noticed the little creature on his shoulder. Thinking it was a snack Maria had brought for him, Maria quickly explained that it was a friend. Just as he was about to introduce Lulu to the Black Panther, he realized Lulu was gone. He found Lulu had crawled into the Black Panther's cage. He didn't know what was going on in that little head of his, but he seemed to want to befriend a large, meat-eating cat. Lulu's innocent appearance caused the Black Panther to soften, having been locked in the cage for so long. He also longed for a friend. So, with Maria as a witness, this unlikely pair became friends. As night fell, he was still recalling the events of the day. Then Lulu innocently asked, "Why did that big cat call me Snack?" Maria was taken aback by the question, since the Black Panther had been calling him that, and he didn't seem afraid of the panther at all. Maria explained, "That's him saying you're cute." Lulu was overjoyed. Maria's mind, however, had short-circuited. Lulu, after hearing this, actually thought the Black Panther liked him, and that's why he kept complimenting him. Maria wondered how his peanut-sized brain had come to that conclusion. The next day, after Maria had fed the Black Panther as usual, Lulu stood by the window, reluctant to return to the room. Maria wondered what was wrong. The little creature asked, "Does that mean I'm pretty? The Black Panther called me Snack again. So, he thinks I'm beautiful, right?" Master Flatterer Maria immediately went online. This solidified his resolve to tell Lulu the truth at the right moment. The day passed quickly. Maria had developed the habit of writing in a diary at the palace. Today, he received something he had been longing for from the head butler. He had something he particularly wanted to do recently. So, a few afternoons later, he took the Black Panther to the garden. As soon as he entered, he began looking around. Once he was sure no one was around, he took out his treasure. The treasure was a pair of cheap leggings. He had been lying down for so long that he wanted to exercise in his free time. That's why he asked the head butler for fabric and sewed a pair of leggings himself. As a girl whose soul came from the modern era, leggings were a must for exercise. The Black Panther clearly wasn't interested in his strange attire. He was more concerned about why Lulu hadn't come today. Maria gave a sly smile that he's sleeping in his room. "What, do you miss him?" The Black Panther, having his feelings exposed, immediately denied it. He thought Maria was a strange person, just like her strange clothing. Maria, on the other hand, could guarantee the Black Panther that even if the nobles got these pants and learned their function, it would be incredibly shocking news. He didn't know if it would shock anyone else, but the Crown Prince would definitely be the first to be shocked. He had originally intended to come find Maria to discuss something, but who would have thought he'd see such a scene? The girl had tried wearing her leggings as outerwear for the first time, but unexpectedly, the Crown Prince saw everything clearly. Having lived for 20 years, he had never seen a girl's leggings before, so he asked her what they were. Maria quickly pulled her skirt down to cover them, explaining that they were pants worn only during exercise. After hearing this, the Crown Prince didn't ask any more questions, but told her to take half a day off because he had important business to discuss with Maria. After arriving in the room, the Crown Prince asked Maria for a favor. The royal ball was about to be held. He wanted to invite Maria to be his dance partner. Maria was a little surprised after hearing this, because with his status, he shouldn't be unable to find a dance partner. Moreover, she couldn't dance at all. But the Crown Prince had his reasons for choosing her. The Queen had a candidate in mind as his bride. He was doing everything in his power to prevent this from happening. If someone saw him dancing with her this year, the elders would force him to marry that girl. And that girl was the Queen's chosen daughter, Rosalia. Maria couldn't imagine what kind of predicament this country would fall into after Rosalia ascended the throne. So she agreed to the Crown Prince's invitation. But she hoped the Crown Prince would protect her. She didn't want to become a victim of his political maneuvering. The Crown Prince not only agreed to her conditions, but also promised to provide her with a generous reward. Hearing that there was money involved, Maria's motivation increased. But then she heard something quite disheartening. Because there was only 1 week left until the banquet began, she had to master all the dancing skills in 7 days. Maria couldn't help but feel nervous after hearing this. She wondered if there was still a chance to back out. The outcome was predictable. It was only the first day, and she was already exhausted beyond words. If she had known dancing would be so tiring, she would never have agreed. She suddenly thought how blissful it was to be a Black Panther. Soon, the physical exhaustion caused her to fall asleep on the sofa. When she woke up again, it was already late at night, but there was inexplicably a blanket on her. Colin said that there was already a blanket there when he found her. Perhaps someone else had put it there, so she didn't think much of it. However, the next day, while she was practicing martial arts, that sneaky Crown Prince actually came to rehearse with her in person. Although she knew this was bound to happen sooner or later, what she didn't expect was that, as the music started, she and the Crown Prince danced together seamlessly. And this was also the first time she had been so intimate with a man, let alone with the esteemed Crown Prince. Suddenly, she stumbled and was about to fall. Seeing this, the Crown Prince immediately caught her in his arms. It was because of this fall that Maria, having just regained her senses, hurriedly pulled away. She didn't expect that kind of scene from television dramas to happen to her. On the other hand, the Crown Prince, being a typical clueless man, simply told her to be more careful during rehearsals. After saying that, he left the scene as if nothing had happened. However, just as he reached the door, his face flushed red. But the next day, that sneaky Crown Prince came again. The moment Maria saw him, she thought of what happened yesterday. He explained it was just an accident, and he really didn't care. Even the crown prince hadn't experienced anything like that. Afterwards, no matter what Maria said, he could only nod in agreement. The atmosphere became somewhat awkward for a moment, but soon he remembered his purpose for visiting Maria today, to better protect Maria's safety. For this reason, the crown prince specifically sought out one of his most trusted people to help him. So the next day, Maria specifically changed into a formal dress to receive the guest. The two people at the head had already heard about this clever and bright girl. They even brought gifts for her. After a few pleasantries, the woman introduced herself as the guardian the crown prince had appointed for Maria, but she was still worried about the upcoming banquet. After all, it involved dancing with His Highness. For a long time before this, the queen had been trying to get Rosalia to marry Wang Chu. Once they were married, he would naturally have greater control over the royal family. This situation would only significantly weaken His Highness's authority. That's why His Highness invited Maria to attend the banquet that day. Moreover, hearing that the two of them had been living together before Maria could explain anything, the woman had already planned Maria's subsequent itinerary. She handed over an invitation, wanting to invite Maria to attend a private social gathering she was hosting. Many influential ladies would be present. She wanted Maria to gain some experience, but Maria didn't think she could do it well. Unexpectedly, the woman simply waved her hand, and a servant brought forward a thick stack of documents. This was the information she had provided for Maria, details about royal etiquette and the attendees of the banquet. It even included their family backgrounds and social statuses. Maria was speechless on the spot. She didn't know how to thank the crown prince. Martial arts training was already tiring enough, and now there was so much daunting material to read. So, in the following days, she always seemed absent-minded. Fortunately, she had a pair of lively companions by her side. While taking care of them, they also helped Maria relieve some stress. Suddenly, a guard came to report that the crown prince was waiting for her in the reception hall and had something to discuss. Upon seeing Maria, the crown prince mentioned the guardian's invitation to the private gathering to help her project an air of elegance. He wanted to have some formal dresses and such custom-made for Maria. He wanted Maria to look even more beautiful. Maria thought she had misheard, so she asked again. The crown prince shyly said he was just joking. Then, using martial arts practice as an excuse, he politely invited Maria to their training session for the day. And so, their bond began to form. A gifted young girl of only 16, yet possessing a status even more esteemed than an imperial princess. All because she cured the future emperor's beloved pet, becoming the royal family's exclusive veterinarian. Then, last week, the crown prince extended an invitation to her. He wanted Maria to be his partner for the dancing portion of the banquet. Although the girl eventually agreed to his request, he couldn't have imagined the immense effort Maria put into preparing for this ball. So much so that she fell asleep on the sofa without realizing it. The crown prince, intending to check on her, couldn't help but smile at the sight. But he quickly remembered the head butler was behind him. He then ordered him to fetch a blanket. Carefully approaching Maria, he gently covered her. The next day, while rehearsing with the girl, an accident occurred inadvertently, just like a scene from a romance drama. From then on, the crown prince made up his mind not to abandon Maria. So in the following days, he would always arrive on time to practice dancing with Maria. As the days passed, they became more and more in sync. However, Maria felt that just dancing wasn't enough to play the role well. However, the crown prince had absolute confidence in her, because in his entire life, he never thought a girl would work so hard for him. Therefore, every time he saw Maria smile, it made him feel particularly at ease. Even when handling official business, he would always think of Maria, wondering what she was doing at that moment. He was so preoccupied that he didn't even react when the butler brought him a report. Although he knew Maria had gone to her guardian's tea party, seeing the list of attendees still made him worry about Maria. He then gave the butler a secret order, instructing him to pay close attention to Maria's safety when the banquet began. He knew that when they danced together, it would surely cause a lot of foolish speculation. Therefore, the crown prince secretly increased Maria's protection. Meanwhile, Maria was arriving at the venue with her guardian. After they found a place to sit, she noticed 4 empty seats. This meant 4 people hadn't arrived yet. The reason her guardian brought her early was to let her familiarize herself with the environment and pretend to be a guest. This allowed Maria to practice conversing with her. When the noble ladies arrived, Maria, having practiced beforehand, behaved very elegantly. No one could tell she was a girl from a mountain village. Maria also received many compliments during their conversations. Although she was excited about these new experiences, the Black Panther was sullen all day. He wouldn't even eat the food Maria personally offered him. The sound of his tail thumping the ground seemed to declare his current mood. It turned out the Crown Prince had promised to play with him. Maria soothed the big cat. Looking out the window, she noticed the weather and instantly understood why the Crown Prince hadn't come today. To cheer up the Black Panther, Maria played a word game with him. Unexpectedly, the Black Panther started with the word rubber band. Do you guys know how to follow that word? Unsurprisingly, this made Maria's brain overheat. Seeing her stumped, the Black Panther's mood improved considerably. But even on a normal day, the Crown Prince might not have had time to play with the Black Panther. Suddenly, Maria had an idea. So, at night, after the maids left, Maria quietly got up and started sewing something. Even pricking her finger in the dark, Maria persisted for several nights. When the gift was finished, she called for Lynn, asking her to help wrap it. Lynn, having witnessed Maria's efforts these past few days, was curious who the gift was for. Maria readily admitted it was for the Crown Prince, but asked Lynn to keep it a secret. But when Lynn carried the gift to put in the cupboard, Loy thought Lynn was a thief sneaking something. Having promised to keep the secret, Lynn didn't know how to explain to Loy. She simply said she happened to run into the madam and was summoned. However, when asked what she did for the madam, Lynn stammered and couldn't speak. Fortunately, Maria appeared just then. He hadn't expected that among the usually gentle and elegant maids, there would be a rat daring to pry into his secrets. The girl had just been immersed in happiness, but in the blink of an eye, she saw her former nightmare. Lynn had accidentally broken a teacup not long ago. Also a maid, Loy had given her a very hard time, believing Lynn was always getting in the way, just as she was about to clean up the shards. Maria said she had something to discuss with Lynn and asked Loy to clean up first. Resentment didn't just arise from this. Maria had long known Loy was bullying Lynn. So, as soon as Lynn had left, Maria heard scolding coming from outside the door. But even after seeing Maria was angry, Loy continued to taunt Lynn, claiming she hadn't finished the chores assigned to her. How could Maria not understand her intentions? Loy wasn't a bad person, just a bit too blunt, but Maria couldn't let her continue bullying Lynn. The reason Loy was unhappy was because Maria was anticipating Lynn and secretly preparing something. So, after coming to the room, Maria opened the box in front of her. Loy hadn't expected Maria to understand her feelings. Afterward, she apologized to Lynn and the two reconciled. The palace gradually returned to normal. But the next day, as Maria was walking the Black Panther in the garden, the Black Panther suddenly threw a tantrum. He had smelled a stranger. He couldn't stand the commotion and completely disregarded Maria's feelings, pulling her back towards the room. But after she settled the Black Panther, someone behind her called out her name. Maria casually turned around. The person was actually Jed. Because he had called himself Ross before, Maria was confused when she saw Jed. During the months Jed had been gone, he had found the tavern run by Maria's family. But Ross wasn't a red-hair girl. The people living there told him Maria had gone traveling. After learning Maria was at the palace, Jed rushed back immediately just to see her. Maria had to change the subject, curious how he had gotten into the palace. Jed's intentions were simple. He just wanted to see how Maria was living there. The girl told him to watch his words, but Jed thought using the formal language of the palace with someone close to him would be too stiff. Maria argued that even royalty had to watch their words. Then it suddenly occurred to her that since Jed was here, could he be royalty himself? Just as she suspected, Jed soon appeared in the Crown Prince's reception hall, and their relationship seemed very good. After some pleasantries, the Crown Prince asked curiously why his trip had taken so long. Hearing this, Jed looked out the window and said he had met a charming girl, and fate had brought them together at the palace. He considered it destiny. The Crown Prince was intrigued and said he must be introduced to her sometime. But when Jed revealed Maria's name, the Crown Prince's expression darkened with a certain suppressed anger. On the day of the banquet, Maria, dressed in formal attire, attended with her guardian. Naturally, she became the center of attention at the banquet. Noble ladies were very respectful towards her. Maria had forgotten who one of them was. After her guardian reminded her, she realized it was Lady Margaret's daughter, Maria found it pleasant to chat with such a friendly person. At that moment, she unexpectedly spotted Jed at the venue. Everyone addressed Jed as Your Highness, further confirming Maria's belief that he was a prince from a prominent royal family. Upon seeing Maria, Jed enthusiastically greeted her. Noble ladies continued to depart. Jed noticed Maria seemed a little nervous and told her to just treat him like the man she met at sea. Worried for her own safety, Maria asked Jed to make a pinky promise. The promise was that he wouldn't punish her afterward. Following this, Jed witnessed the crown prince taking his seat. His face was devoid of any enthusiasm, and there was a reason for this, because present at the scene was someone very special to him. However, he completely ignored the princess beside him. He walked right in front of Maria and sincerely invited her. My beautiful miss, may I have this dance? Maria had put in a lot of diligent effort during this time, naturally to prepare for this day. Unsurprisingly, this action caught the attention of everyone around them. However, this didn't affect them. They became the most eye-catching sight at the event. After that, the crown prince told Maria to enjoy herself to the fullest, and if she got tired, she could go to the second-floor terrace to rest. Maria was a little curious as to why she had to go to the terrace. At this moment, Jed seized the opportunity and invited Maria to dance with him. The crown prince could only quietly watch them. Currently, Maria didn't belong to him, but his mood at this moment was worse than eating dirt. Soon after, Maria arrived at the terrace alone. She hadn't expected things to progress so smoothly today. Suddenly, the terrace door was pushed open. It was the crown prince. Maria then realized the reason the crown prince told her to rest here was so he could find her more quickly. However, after seeing Maria, the crown prince told her to get ready and come with him somewhere. Then, with a flip, he jumped down to the ground. This maneuver stunned Maria. She never thought the crown prince would climb over the wall and skip out one day. Then the crown prince told Maria to jump down too, and said he would catch her. Clearly, this was a huge hurdle for Maria. But with the crown prince's encouragement, she finally mustered up the courage, climbed onto the railing, let out a yell to bolster her courage, and jumped down. She landed securely in the crown prince's arms, although she didn't understand where the crown prince was taking her. This man's orders were not to be disobeyed, and from the moment the girl jumped, the crown prince's gaze towards Maria had changed. Little did they know, their every move was clearly seen by Princess Rosalia. She believed Maria had taken her place. This was the reason the crown prince ignored her. In just an instant, she developed a deep animosity towards Maria. She gave an inconspicuous box as a gift to the crown prince. However, the crown prince treasured this gift very much because it was from the girl he loved. When he took the item out of the gift box, the envelope inside caught his attention. It contained birthday wishes for him, thanking him for his efforts during this time and for allowing her to spend such an enjoyable time. Although Maria herself was insignificant, she still wanted to do something for the crown prince within her power. She hoped this set of pajamas would bring him a bit of warmth during the cold winter. These pajamas might look strange, but Maria guaranteed they were absolutely soft and comfortable to wear. After reading the letter, the crown prince smiled gently and had hot water prepared. He couldn't wait to put on the pajamas after his bath. However, the next morning, Maria had just woken up when someone rushed in to report that Her Majesty the Queen wished to see her, and they had both heard of the Queen's reputation. Maria was a little scared, but he still dressed up. Before meeting Rosalind, Maria's meeting was perfect, without a single flaw. When he saw Rosalia was also present, his heart skipped a beat, because at the crown prince's birthday banquet, Maria had stolen the show, which originally belonged to him. Although Maria handled the conversation very carefully and presented a meeting gift according to royal custom, Rosalia still walked up to him and, without giving him time to react, slapped him hard across the face. He believed Maria had humiliated him at the banquet. Due to the disparity in their status, Maria chose to endure it. At this time, Rosalind said from the side, "You're only doing this to vent your frustration." He was very disappointed with Rosalia's actions. As if possessed, he apologized to Maria on Rosalia's behalf. He had long heard that Maria had cured the Black Panther and had become the royal family's exclusive veterinarian. But this didn't stop him from threatening. Do you know what it means to be the first to slap the prince? However, Maria had already anticipated this outcome. Therefore, He clearly understood Rosalind's meaning. Afterwards, Maria walked out of the room. Rosalia quietly followed. She strode up behind Maria, still wanting to take the opportunity to teach him another lesson. Fortunately, Maria reacted in time. He explained that he was recommended by Prince Tame and was specially invited to become the royal veterinarian. Furthermore, he had strictly adhered to the rules and had shown sufficient respect to the crown prince if you were just blinded by anger. In resorting to tricks, what will the crown prince think when he knows this side of you? Rosalia was left speechless with anger. This temporary victory belonged to Maria. But at this moment, he pondered why he had to go through all of this. He had sacrificed too much for his initial wish, which had brought him too much trouble. After Maria returned to his room, Lin immediately brought an ice pack to reduce the swelling. The crown prince also rushed to Maria's room immediately. He couldn't believe that the queen would so blatantly lay hands on him. And the reason for all of this was his attitude towards Rosalind that day. He promised Maria that he would ensure she received double the punishment. However, Maria gently told him that he hadn't been foolishly bullied. Instead, he had already warned Rosalia. Anyone with a conscience would feel very bad if someone was hurt because of them at this moment. So he decided to compensate him with something. He suggested taking Maria to the market that evening. Maria naturally accepted his proposal. They soon arrived at a restaurant. Maria curiously asked how the crown prince knew this place. So he told her about his childhood experiences. Because he had been identified as a prince from a young age, coupled with his appearance, he felt that all the girls his age in the world were infatuated with him. This was his refuge. After learning this little secret, Maria's mood improved considerably. After dinner, they went to many places until they reached a fortune-teller's shop. Maria had long heard that magic existed in this world, so he was very curious about this fortune-telling shop. The crown prince indulgently said, "If you're interested, go ahead and have fun." Afterwards, the fortune-teller warmly invited Maria to sit down and uttered the familiar opening line, "Do you want to know your future?" Maria curiously asked, "Please, could you take a look at my future financial fortune?" James placed his hands on the crystal ball and chanted a spell. The crystal ball dimmed after only a second. The crown prince, standing behind him, noticed the anomaly. Maria had no future. So, after returning to the palace, the crown prince eagerly consulted the historical records for cases where the crystal ball extinguished after 1 second. Because in history, only 2 situations occur. Either the person angered God, and therefore divination cannot foresee their future. The other is that there are people who have transmigrated from another world. James also cannot peek into their future destiny. But for this girl who led him out of loneliness, he believes Maria must be one of those transmigrators. Within a single day, this girl from a remote town received 2 invitations. One was a greeting from her family. The words on it reminded Maria of the scenery of her hometown. At the same time, it was also filled with her parents' support and care. Even her younger sister, Ross, mentioned her, hoping she would plan to go home soon and spend time with her parents. The other letter was more troublesome, because the sender was Rosalia. It said that her dog was sick and hoped Maria could come and treat it. Although Maria knew this was another one of Rosalia's attempts to make things difficult for her, when it came to treating animals, Maria wasn't fazed in the slightest. Soon, in another room, Rosalia had someone bring the dog and described its symptoms. The puppy was unwilling to eat and even had diarrhea. And when the dog opened its mouth, a foul odor emanated from its mouth. So she asked the dog what it had just eaten. The truth was that Rosalia had starved it for several days. It was so hungry that it had to eat spoiled bread. And, moreover, its owner was Helena, Rosalia's older sister. She was only temporarily caring for it due to work. Upon hearing this, Maria immediately bristled, asking her why she would feed the dog expired food. Rosalia, upon hearing these words, also immediately stood up to retort. She thought Maria was talking nonsense. But when the other party revealed that the dog's owner was actually her older sister, she panicked because she knew how Helena would punish anyone who mistreated her dog. Watching Rosalia's jaw drop, Maria sighed and instructed the maid to take the dog to Helena's residence. And she instructed them to prepare some bland food for the puppy. In front of Rosalia, She warned her to take good care of her dog, as she had evidence of someone else mistreating it. And that evidence was, naturally, the letter Rosalia had written. After the maid left and the dog situation was handled, Maria didn't want to stay there a second longer. And regarding her lack of awareness of Maria's medical skills, since Jarek was a top client, Maria was more than happy to let him and Rosalia have a chat. After saying that, she slammed the door and left. On the other hand, Rosalia's heart was breaking. If the truth reached Helena, it meant she would lose her eligibility to be the crown princess. At the same time, her reputation within the family would be forever tarnished. This girl, without any real skills, still insisted on blaming everything on Maria. Meanwhile, Jed's journey had also come to an end. The biggest regret was that he had just found the girl he loved, but he had to leave tomorrow and return to his own country, and he couldn't take Maria with him. So, in his last moments here, he asked the crown prince to give him a few days off. As far as he knew, Maria and her family could only communicate through letters. Jed had been to that town. He hoped Maria could go back and spend time with her parents. The reason he made this request was that Jed had chosen to step back. He believed that truly caring for someone shouldn't mean restricting them. Maria shouldn't be limited to just being the crown prince's veterinarian. At this point, the crown prince interrupted Jed. He knew Jed felt the same way about him, so he didn't recommend trying to push him out of his mind. Jed thought, what is this guy thinking? I'm giving her to you, and you're giving me this kind of advice. And what Jed said next was the crux of the rift between the two brothers. In the entire Larson kingdom, there's one person you cannot control, and that person is standing right beside you. Unsurprisingly, this was meant literally. The words hit the crown prince like a slap in the face. The next morning, at their parting, Jed still couldn't resist seeking out Maria one last time. He was upset, not expecting their paths to diverge so soon, but he believed they would meet again. Before leaving, Jed gave Maria a box. This made the girl, who hadn't prepared a gift, feel very embarrassed and reluctant. Jed, however, believed that meeting him during his travels was the best gift Maria could give him. Maria shyly opened the box. Inside was a dazzling ruby. Because Maria's hair was also red, Jed thought it would look beautiful on her. He also included a remedy for motion sickness, the same kind she'd used on a ship. You might need this someday, he said. Of course, he wouldn't forget their wonderful time together. Maria couldn't describe how touched she was. She felt incredibly lucky to have met Jed on her journey. Isn't this interesting? She thought. Talking about you, learn something from this. And Jed had prepared another gift. He told her the crown prince had given her time off to go home and visit her parents. This excitement lasted into the evening. Maria was packing her luggage in her room. When she saw Luli, she excitedly shared the news that she was going home. At first, Luli thought Jed was joking. That is, until she asked the crown prince. The crown prince, initially reluctant, finally agreed to Jed's suggestion. But he also seemed very resistant to letting Maria leave. This inner conflict troubled him greatly. But the moment Maria finished packing, the door to her room was pushed open, followed by the sound of footsteps. It was the crown prince with a gift for Maria. He wanted to send some small tokens of respect to her family. So many things. How can a girl carry all of this? So, the crown prince offered to escort her home. He claimed he was also planning to tour the nearby region. Maria, naive and trusting, believed him. So, before they even departed, Maria began telling the crown prince about the scenery of her hometown, volunteering as his guide. As the girl was about to leave, the usually self-centered crown prince was willing to set aside his royal crown for her, even telling a lie. He claimed he was going to tour the surrounding areas, thus conveniently escorting her home. This was enough to prove his deep affection for the girl, his unwillingness to let her leave his side. He wished he could be the one to stay by her side, keeping her smiling always. However, as a prince, some things were destined to remain unchanged. He was well aware of the limitations and constraints that came with his status. Despite this, he still firmly hoped to be the one to support her and bring her happiness. In the carriage, the crown prince asked her, if I said I was getting married, what would you think? Maria forced a smile and said, with the sincerest wishes from the bottom of her heart, I'd be happy for you. Upon receiving her reply, he felt a pang of disappointment. It turned out her feelings for him were not the same. How he longed to stay by her side forever. Soon, the carriage finally arrived at her hometown. As she stepped onto the familiar land, the familiar scents in the air awakened her. However, the crown prince announced that he would have someone deliver the luggage, but he had some personal matters to attend to and couldn't accompany Maria to visit her aunt and uncle. Hearing this, Maria couldn't help but question herself. She thought her actions had affected the crown prince's rest. However, for the crown prince, such a trivial matter wasn't significant. Soon after, the tavern was filled with various exquisite gifts. The old couple had never seen such valuable items. They couldn't help but worry about what their daughter had experienced while away. Just then, Maria's younger sister, Ross, walked over. Her tone of voice carried a hint of coldness. She stubbornly believed that Maria had stolen these luxuries from somewhere. Maria sighed helplessly at her sister's harsh attitude. However, Ross didn't restrain herself, but instead escalated her hurtful words. Her words implied that Maria had obtained these luxuries by marrying some rich old man. Their father immediately criticized Ross. Although they didn't believe Ross's words, the valuable gifts couldn't dispel their suspicions. Maria had to make up an excuse, saying that her work had earned the recognition of a noblewoman, and she received these gifts before leaving. The old couple didn't think too much about it and quickly believed their daughter. Her mother didn't forget to ask Maria to send her regards to the noblewoman, thanking her for taking care of her daughter. After a warm exchange with her family, perhaps due to the exhaustion from her journey, Maria finally fell asleep cuddling her dog. However, in Maria's dream, the sun was an eerie red. She was in a desolate place. The atmosphere of this place felt suffocating. Then, a boundless sea of fire surged towards her. She kept running in her dream. Finally, after running for a while, she saw the exit. Because she didn't notice the stones on the ground, she fell very close to the exit. Soon after, Maria woke up from the nightmare. Even after 5 minutes had passed, she still hadn't recovered from the fright. Her dog seemed to sense some kind of ominous presence in the room, which had caused Maria to have a nightmare. She suddenly felt goosebumps all over her body. So, despite the clear weather, Maria decided to start cleaning her room. When she cleaned under the bed, she unexpectedly found a diary titled Mary's Diary. She eagerly opened the diary. Mary was her mother's name. In the diary, she was recorded as a priestess of the temple. Surprisingly, as a priestess, she had gotten married. Even more surprising, the mother in the book, like her, possessed some kind of special ability. It was said that only sincere priestesses would be granted this power by God. Since Maria didn't know much about her mother's identity and experiences, she decided to talk to her mother personally to learn more about her own background and abilities. The diary recorded her mother's past. During their conversation, Maria learned that her mother had to resign because she lost a certain ability. However, one day, her mother had a dream. In the dream, Maria became her daughter. It was less a dream and more prophecy, because her mother firmly believed this was a premonition of the future. Regarding Maria's nightmare, her mother believed it was a foreshadowing of future events. When God bestows this power upon people, he also marks those like Maria as watchers. God hopes that those who possess this power can care for more people and always pay attention to their actions. Therefore, her mother believed that Maria's nightmare was a task given to her by God, asking her to watch over and protect the people around her. Maria was feeling very down at this moment. She had never felt so powerless, or rather, she had never fantasized about receiving God's favor, because she knew deep down that her soul didn't belong here. Due to various reasons, she was forced to become the crown prince. To avoid others' judgment, she tried to shut off her emotions. However, one day, her beloved pet fell ill. A girl confidently came before her and declared that she could definitely cure it. Looking at the girl's confident demeanor, for the first time in her life, she became interested in a commoner girl. But as time went on, his view of the girl gradually changed. From initial admiration, it transformed into deep love. However, hindered by his status as a prince, that love became increasingly burdensome, and the girl he cared about, one day, caught the attention of his fiancé copyright E. To ensure the crown prince would never see her again, Rosalia secretly went to the estate of Lord Delat. She had only one objective. This lord had a unique predilection. His wife had beautiful red hair. Unfortunately, his wife passed away due to an accident, leaving him forever. Rumor had it that he wanted to find another red-haired woman as his wife. Rosalia's goal in coming here was solely to provide this lord with clues about Maria. However, the lord was no fool. He didn't understand why royalty would help him. Even so, this was merely a scapegoat that Rosalia had found. Before the Lord could agree, she brought her own men to kidnap Maria, claiming, "You'll definitely like the person I'm recommending to you." Meanwhile, the unsuspecting Maria was still immersed in a conversation with her mother. She still had doubts about the contents of the diary, but life had to go on, didn't it? So, after discussing it with her dog, she decided to go to the bakery to buy some bread. Luckily, the shop had sold out of bread, except for one loaf. Just as she was happily about to take the last loaf, she unexpectedly ran into the Crown Prince. Learning that the Crown Prince had finished all his affairs and hadn't yet decided on his next course of action, he was strolling around town while his servants rested. Upon learning this, Maria suggested taking the Crown Prince home for dinner with her family. She said her family would surely welcome him. The Crown Prince didn't refuse. Learning that a noble child was coming, Maria's mother meticulously prepared a table full of delicious dishes. Her father sincerely thanked the noble woman for the precious gifts and expressed his respect. The Crown Prince looked at Maria with a puzzled expression. To avoid revealing the truth, Maria quickly changed the subject. When Ross saw her sister's intimate behavior with the Crown Prince, her expression was very displeased. The Maria she had known since childhood had always been calm and collected. She had never seen her sister so flustered. When they were younger, Ross had snatched a book Maria wanted to read, and Maria always yielded to her. It seemed everyone in the family favored Maria, but one day, when Ross was about to confess to the boy she loved, she never could have imagined that her first love was actually in love with her sister. To get revenge on Maria, Ross practically seized all of Maria's new clothes and allowance. However, Maria always remained calm and never got angry with her. Instead, she always maintained a smile and lived with Ross peacefully. Then one day, Ross, acting as a sister, asked Maria to pick a fresh leaf for her. But she had ulterior motives and caused Maria to fall down the stairs, leaving her unconscious for a whole week. When Maria woke up, she found that her sister, who had always yielded to her, had changed. Now, she would demand that Ross share the housework equally, and even refused a series of previously unreasonable demands. A few months later, Maria suddenly decided to travel and disappeared for several months. Meanwhile, these stories were relayed without reservation to the bandits preparing to kidnap Maria. After her sister's disappearance for several months, Ross brought home many luxury goods and a noble boy. As expected, the reason Ross colluded with them, he only wanted to teach Maria a lesson. However, he probably never dreamed how serious the decision he made would become.